Hey, Thomas here. So this is going to be my short and hopefully concise primer on UTM tags and UTM tracking. Simply said, UTM tags are tags that you can put on any links that are coming from inbound traffic into your website. And those tags can then be used by Google Analytics to give you detailed reports on what's going on. In Google Analytics, there's a set of 5 types of tags, so 5 different levels of tags that report different things. They're called UTM source, UTM medium, UTM campaign, UTM content, and then the 5th one is called keyword in Google Analytics, but the term is actually goes like this. It's actually UTM term, okay? So the other ones go like this, UTM underscore, but then they're whatever they are. And you should always stick to lowercase for everything in the tags and for the tag names themselves. So UTM term is for keyword, UTM source, UTM underscore source is for source, and so forth. The other ones are kind of normal. This one here is kind of an extra one, and I keep this outside because we're using them for something specific that's not really used in Google Analytics for reporting. Now the other terms here, they are kind of categorized in higher level reporting and more lower level or more detailed reporting. And the higher level reporting are source and medium, and then the lower level reporting are campaign, and then somewhat subordinate or ordinate under campaign is content and keyword. So, and that's an important thing right there. You should try not to commingle those hierarchies, right? So let's say source, you're using this for saying which platform the traffic is coming from. So it would be Google versus Facebook versus Instagram. You might consider segmenting within Facebook. If you're doing a lot of Facebook ads, it might just make a lot of sense to segment that between Facebook newsfeed, Facebook mobile feed, Facebook Instagram, Facebook ad network, and so forth. And that's how I use the source level. Medium is usually used for referral types. So here are some examples. CPC is an important one that is used generally to tag all paid traffic, and the automatic reporting setup that you already have set as a default in Google Analytics summarizes all CPC traffic as paid traffic, right? Then other examples for that are email, or when you let's say you have a good SMS retargeting going on, you put SMS there. So that's kind of like the medium by which the traffic gets there. Another one of those is organic. Organic is used, for example, for Google search. That will show Google as source and then organic as medium. So this is kind of giving you an idea of the hierarchy level of how source being kind of the platform or the site that it comes from, medium being kind of like the vehicle or the broad generic way that this category that this traffic falls under. And then underneath that is campaign. Now on a campaign level, you can use that in different ways depending on how you set everything up. You could name a campaign or use for the campaign tag, you could name the product that you're advertising. Or maybe you're setting your Facebook campaigns up so that you're advertising multiple products within the same campaign. So in that case, you might use the campaign name in Facebook for UTM campaign. And then for content and keyword, you basically have left over to put the different reporting criteria in that segments further down, that drills further down into the details of the reporting criteria that are important below campaign level. So keep in mind, a lot of times reporting is as good as there's a trade-off between the amount of data that you have on each level and the quality of reporting that you're going to get from that. So what I mean by that is if you're niching it down too much in the reporting, then you get a lot of detail in the reporting, but that report might not be statistically relevant, right? If you only have a few clicks with that are coming from a specific ad, then even though 25% of those clicks might convert into purchases, it may or may not be statistically significant. So that's why you want to kind of think about how you set this up on the campaign level, so that you have a lot of data on the campaign level, and then how you drill down into content and keyword. Another thing that is important to consider is how this actually looks on the level of the actual reporting, for example, in Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is generally structured in such a way that all reports that are relatively simple to access, you can report on a primary dimension, which means basically you can report by any of these UTM tags, right? You can report by source, you can report by medium, we can report by campaign or by content or by keyword. So that's a primary reporting dimension. Now, there's one special case, and that is the combination of source and medium. And that combination is already pulled together in this primary dimension in Google Analytics. You get to this by going to acquisition, all traffic, and then source medium. And you see here, so I filtered this down to any source medium combination that either contains referral or none. And that is to show that on this very high level of analysis, this is pretty okay. You see here, this is mobile Facebook and it's referral traffic. So referral, that means you don't know if it was paid or organic, right? We just know that it came from Facebook, and we know that it came from mobile in this case. Versus over here without the M, that is Facebook desktop traffic, right? And again, this is, you don't know if it's paid or organic because it's that referral means that medium wasn't set. But referral shows up when a source can be identified, then medium shows up by default as referral unless it's set by something else, by an explicit use of assignment of the UTM medium value in the incoming traffic. Here is the other example for the kind of traffic that you don't know anything about at all, and that is direct traffic. So this happens when someone bookmarks the page and then later clicks the bookmark. It happens when someone copies the URL from somewhere and it's not a tagged URL and you paste it into another browser window. That would all be direct traffic. And the more traffic you can get a hold of that is actually tagged, the better, because you see this here is still almost 20% of the revenue that is in this particular report comes from this traffic that you have no clue where it comes from. So the more traffic you can tag, the better. Even all this other traffic here, all the traffic on this page that comes from this filter is untagged traffic, and you will be able to get more specific reporting out of Google Analytics as well as Trackify Analytics if you use UTM tags to tag your traffic, because then this will all be unlocked into more specific groupings. All right. So that's all about this. There's a tool here in Google. That's a Google developer tool. I'll send you the links to that, where you can basically build a tagged URL out of a URL that is the input URL. So this here is just a shirt. Here I'll show you what it is in a demo store. So this is the product, right? And so you just take the product URL from up there and put that into the website URL field here. And then, so you can see here, these three are so important that they're actually marked with an asterisk. So they're mandatory. Okay. So as an example, campaign source could be Facebook. If you wanted to make a link that is, actually built manually, if you will. I'll show you later on how to do this automatically by Facebook ads. So Facebook would be an example for campaign source. CPC would be an example for paid traffic. So CPC would be that. 100% chance whiskey, that would be an example for a campaign name that would just be taking the name from the name of the product, basically, right? And then for the campaign term and campaign content, you basically have these left over to package information about the audiences. So anything that has to do with the ad sets, the ads, and the post has to be packaged into this. And it depends a lot on how you set up your campaigns, which information you might want to have in there. So as just kind of an inspiration or an idea, in campaign term, you could use some hints on what audience you're targeting, what bidding methods you're using, and what optimization method you're using. Okay, so that would be good information to be kept here. Optimization method might also be something good to put in with a campaign, right? If you name this after the Facebook campaign, you could put in here, whatever the shirt is or whatever the product is, website conversion purchase, let's say, right? So that would be a good thing to put actually on the level into the campaign name. Then you have that freed up on the term because that's might make sense to you this way. Content, so that depends a lot on how you set up your posts. If you, like me, like to use as few posts, physical posts as possible, and then point all your ads from all your ad sets to the same post as much as possible, you might want to put post information into content. And then actually, I'll show you a little trick on how to put the UTM content value in the post itself so that you can also track organic traffic there and then also track paid traffic as well with the campaign content value that you put in there. So then here's a whole link. That's an example, right? So you have the whole URL, the general URL here, and then the UTM values are query parameters in the query string after the question mark, right? That's how that works. Okay, so let's go one more step further here. This is kind of a mapping of how to apply this specifically to a Facebook campaign. I have here, on the campaign level, you may have one campaign, you may have multiple ad sets in that same campaign. You might have one or more ads, maybe in each ad sets, right? This is kind of how I do it. I hook up each ad to each ad set. So each of these ad sets will have 3 ads, if that's how I set it up, but they will all be pointing to the same post, right? So an ad set and another ad set can't have the same ad, even though it might be a copy of that. They will have different ad IDs. Okay, so an ad can't be duplicated. It can be duplicated, but it can't be physically the same ad. But the post can be physically the same, or it can be spread out across different posts, right? So different ads can point to the same post. They could also point to multiple posts, and different ads in different ad sets could therefore point to the same post. So therefore, it might make a lot of sense to pre-tag your links inside that you put in the post itself by these types of things, right? So you could you could tag UTM medium equals organic to the link that you put in the post, and then UTM content equals maybe, whatever, post 1 or P1 or, something that tells you something about which post that actually was. So that way you can actually know your organic traffic from your paid traffic. Because if you do it this way, so if you put these tags into the link that is actually on the physical post, and then you run several different ads, but in the ads you put values like UTM equals CPC, UTM medium equals CPC, and then UTM content equals, something like this. Maybe you still put a value in here that lets you know that, oh yeah, this is going to this particular post. Okay, great. But now let's say you put here that, oh, I added a shop now button to this, right? Or you put the ad ID in there. And this is actually the way that Facebook can use merge fields that you can use in Facebook to put a string of UTM parameters into the URL field in the ads, so that you can automate some of this, because these are merge fields, so they pull in certain things from your campaigns and from your ads and from your ad sets into the merge string, into the UTM string. And that way you don't have to set this up for every single ad manually, but you can use these merge fields to treat large groups of ads all in one automated fashion. So with that said, so let's go through this again in one step at a time. So UTM campaign, that value would be set, easy way to do that is to set it to this merge field. Then UTM term would be set to something like ad set name. Maybe even put, add the ad ID in here. Now this is can be a little bit confusing. The reason it's confusing is that there isn't one size fits all ways of setting up your ads and therefore setting up your UTM tags. It has a lot to do with how you set up your ads and also how you prefer your reporting. The reason why I would sometimes even double up on pieces, on parts that I want to have in UTM term and UTM content comes from the 1-dimension/2-dimension way of reporting. You see, when I come back over here to Google Analytics, we talked about the first dimension so far. So right now I have chosen here as primary dimension source medium, the combination of source and medium. I could also choose source, just source alone, or just medium alone. Right? So you can see here some examples for what values come in for the UTM medium. I could also choose keyword here, and you can see some examples for what comes in as keywords. So now let's go back to having these two dimensions, if you will. They are pulled together as one dimension. And now I can choose a secondary dimension here. And let's say I choose secondary dimension, and I have a way to pull the reports now in a more detailed way, right? So I have still the source medium here, but now I could tell. So for example, if I filter this down to Facebook, everything that contains Facebook, I would now have a report that is splitting out the different campaigns that are going on here, right? And now, so let's say I sort this by source medium. Okay, that's all pretty confusing because there are all kinds of different values that are popping up here. So that just shows how relatively uncoordinated and disorganized this particular reporting is. And you see that a lot. Like even if you kind of started in the past or started tagging some stuff with UTM tags, then a lot of times once you get in here and you analyze some stuff and you look at some things, it can actually be quite confusing when you see what all is in here. So that's exactly what you're supposed to learn from this and take away from this is that it absolutely is worth it to take a moment to think about how you're going to want to report things and what are you going to expect to see, right? So continuing on with this, the secondary dimension here can be set to any of the other things, right? You can report content here. So I like to kind of go at it from this high level source medium and then branch it down to add content and campaign or term or keyword, right? Keyword is the same as term. So keyword, you can also put keyword in here. And so from just kind of playing around with this a little bit with the first dimension, secondary dimension, you can see here, okay, you can see certain things in setting up these groupings, but what if you wanted to see, okay, I have the audience, let's say I have the targeting in here. So I have my targeting in here, but I can't tell from this which ad set or which ad ID is actually showing these really cool results, right? So the reason why this is such a big line here, this row is so big in reporting, is because for most of the mobile Facebook traffic, there wasn't anything set in UTM parameters. And that's exactly what you can see here. So nothing is set for a keyword. Nothing is set for UTM medium. Nothing is set for campaign. So if you set all these things, then all of a sudden, this big block of conversions here is you're going to be able to break this down, and you're going to be able to see where things are coming from and what converts well, and where you have where the results are coming from. So this is really all there is to say about that. Again, here are the different ways. So this is really the string that I place inside the URL tag field in every single ad in Facebook. And I have a couple of different formats of this. Some that I use for DPA ads, I use a slightly different string than for all the other ads. I usually use, for all the other ads, I use one string, and for DPA ads, I use a different string. And I can explain that better in like a video that's about DPA ads. It would be too confusing to go over this here. But so this is how I do it. These are kind of my tried and true ways to do it. So UTM source is placement. That way I get split reporting between desktop newsfeed, mobile newsfeed, Instagram, and ads content network. Then UTM medium is always fixed CPC, because all traffic that is tagged with the URL tags that are inside the ads is going to be paid impressions. So I want them all to be CPC. Then UTM campaign, I just set this to campaign name here. That's a good starting point, good way to go. UTM term I'll use for ad set name, and possibly ad name, and possibly ad ID. So you can kind of leave out or add or not one or the other. Ad set name is the bare minimum. If you want to break it down right here on this level to ad ID, just put that in. Just know that you won't be able to have grouped together reports, right? So that's the difference. If you leave it out from here, if you do this over here, then you can basically pull reports in Trackify Analytics or in Google Analytics. You can pull reports by ad set, and that's good. That can be very good, right? And then you can break it down on another level with another parameter using these other things. Here's another way to do this as well. If you have an ad set name, and sometimes you may have the same ad set name in different campaigns, depending on how you work, depending on how you set things up. So the problem is that your reporting in Google Analytics is limited to 2 dimensions, right? Now you have these 2 dimensions already combined as source medium, so that counts as 1 in Google Analytics. But now you can't easily have these 2 and then also 2 more. So with that said, it might be kind of nice to have your campaign names also reporting in here. And even though this would be duplicitous, that's still a good benefit, because now you can actually know which campaign these guys are coming from, and also have that broken down in the ad set, right? So that way you could pull a report that uses this as first dimension and this as second dimension. Well, okay, great. Now if you want to break it further down, you use this as first dimension and you use this as second dimension. And if you set it up like this, you still also have this reporting in here, and that's great, right? So that's cool. And then you could, so now if to drill down deeper, you could then, if you do it this way, so you have the first level of reporting, you go, this is the first dimension, this is the second dimension. And now you find something that's cool. So you go, oh, okay, I want to know more about this particular keyword. So then you choose this as first dimension and one of these guys as second dimension, right? Well, this as second dimension. Can't use this because that's not available for reporting in Google Analytics, but it is available for reporting in Trackify Analytics. So that's a good way to go, right? So use this as first dimension and this as secondary dimension. Then that way you get whatever the results are here per ad set, and you still know the campaign. You get the ad set results broken down by ads in the same ad sets, right? You can also go back this way, right? You can also report results by campaign and then break it down by ad set, by ad ID, if you put ad ID in here, right? So there are different cool ways of breaking this down if you kind of follow this general scheme here. Now, as a very last step of this, I'm going to show you where to insert this and how to then, how to do it. So here's basically the place. We're in editing an ad, right? We're in campaign, ad set, ad. So this is ad. We're in the ads, and here's a specific ad. You can select multiple ads like this, and then paste the same string of URL parameters into this, right? You can see here multiple ads are selected, and you can see this doesn't say mixed, so that means it's all the same. Now, there are a couple of considerations here that are important. Number one, you have to do this when you first launch the campaign, because otherwise the campaigns will not be able to resolve the merge fields. That's important. So you have to put these in when you launch the campaigns. The second thing to do that is important is, now that you have these merge fields in here, some of them are going to be automated, completely automated, right? But some of them are going to pull in the names that you set on the campaign level. And so that's important. So for workflow, I would always suggest that you put this merge string in here, you put the whole thing in here, and then you come back to naming your campaigns, naming your ad sets, and naming your ads. Well, ad name isn't used in this. Well, it is here. It is. So in the one we talked about, we actually don't use ad name here, and I kind of like it that way. That way you can just use ad ID, but you can do that however you want. So when you name the things properly, so you have the campaign name, and you might want to go through the ad sets and name them so that you get information in there that is relevant to that ad set, right? So maybe you put some targeting in here, right? So I have here interests and friend of fans. I have here Einstein, math, Pi Day, and online shopping, right? So this is based. So this is happening on the ad set naming scheme, and that is the name that is going to be pulled in by this merge field. And you have to do this before you first publish the campaign. Otherwise, those merge fields can't work properly. Okay, well, that's all there is to it. I hope you can now go out and tag all your campaigns and gather all this information. I'm going to show you then inside Trackify Analytics how the breakdown of whatever you put into the UTM tags, how it actually is really cool to see it there and to see the results there, and how you can tie them back to specific ads and ad set that generated the traffic. And in a sense, it's actually cooler and much easier and faster to use than Google Analytics. And it's much more detail than you could get from Facebook reports.